So today I'm joined with Bhai Baljit Singh Virji from Basics of Sikki. Virji, thank you for joining me. I would just like to ask you to introduce yourself and also your Sikhi journey.
Waheguru ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru ji ki Fateh. So, my name is Baljit Singh, and if I just go straight into when my Sikhi journey started, was back in 1997, and at the time I was 16 years old. I grew up in a very typical Punjabi family and not really much exposure to Sikhi. So we'd go to the Gurdwara not very often, probably on an odd Sangrand, maybe, and not really knowing what Sangrand is. So very early on in my life, I got involved in drinking and alcohol and a lot of other things that comes with that lifestyle. And for me, to be honest, it wasn't something like, that I was getting into something really crazy. And it for me, that seemed to be the norm. And because of the my family upbringing and the type of upbringing I had, so it was like very grounded in the sense of like very Punjabi family, and everything was good at home. But things like drinking and all of that was very normal to us. So we actually found it odd if we'd ever find a Punjabi family that didn't drink or eat meat or anything. So like we'd like so far I remember like actually, if somebody would tell me that like these guys are vegetarians, I was like, oh my god, how do they live? How do they survive? Can they actually can they get through? Are they going to get enough nutrition? And so yeah, so it wasn't anything odd. It wasn't like, oh my god, like I'm off the rails. It was like, yeah, I drink, and it was just so normal. And came with that was the smoking, smoked a lot of weed. And it wasn't until then when I was about 16 that just kind of throw into that even like what people a lot of people think is when we sometimes associate people to have these certain habits, because that's what they are.
Mhm.
you you kind of get caught up in certain habits, and often they can be this judging upon people about their personality, of what this person is then. And we can't sometimes, and I'm not sure, to be honest, because I'm not really in touch now with unis, and well, it's a long time for me now. I'm going to be 40. So like yeah, I don't know what it's like now, but there would be this association sometimes, like somebody does all of these things and it's almost like that's it, they're labeled as a bad person. But I think it's very important to kind of separate the two, to like somebody might have these certain habits, but that doesn't necessarily make them a bad person. And they can still have very kind of grounding values. It doesn't mean that they're not kind of connected to compassion and love and these emotions inside. So like for me, I feel that I always had that kind of connection with human beings, to when somebody's kind of going through some sort of pain or suffering, always wanting to be there and speak to them. And so anyway, moving on from that, and then I was introduced to Sikhi when I was about 16. That is due to family situations kind of going a certain direction, things getting very, very difficult, and somebody kind of taking us to a Mahapurk. And that was kind of my first, I would say, proper exposure. And where I came from a background of where my family would completely speak down and diss Mahapurks. So like to, and then that day I remember it very clearly, to be faced with a Mahapurk, which I didn't understand what that was, or it was something we had a laugh on. But um, I just remember that day where, before even walking into the room to do darshan of this Mahapurk, like something I've never experienced. So before even going into the room, and I had this rush of like feeling like I'm going to see somebody really kind of big, and I didn't really understand what was happening to me, and I knew that, whoa, there's something here, there's some form of power that I've not been exposed to and haven't tapped into before. And then being sat before this Mahapuruk, where they knew nothing of our family, and how he kind of revealed certain things and said certain things to us, I was mesmerized. I was in awe that, how does he know so much? And where's this insight coming from? So that was kind of where my journey then started from, where Sikki's concerned. But like, I can go into so much, but like, I would say it needs a book. Yeah.
What about coming into Basics of Sikhi? Because I'm 21 and I've literally, my childhood was just Basics of Sikhi videos. That's how I really found Sikhi, and a lot of the Bant is the same. So when Basics of Sikhi went down a few weeks ago, everyone kind of went a bit crazy, because that is literally a lot of people that I know, a lot of our childhood, watching those videos and learning from those videos. So how did Basics of Sikhi become a part of your life?
So for me, I I came to see of some of Jagraj Singh's videos back in around 2012, but didn't really follow much. It was literally just when you watch I've watched the odd video, but at that same time, I was already doing Prachar anyway. I'd been doing Prachar for some years. I was already doing regular Katha, and I would do workshops of Japji Sahib. And then, so it was then in the summer of 2012, if I can remember correctly, in August, I'd gone for a annual smagam in Aberdeen to do Katha there, where they didn't have a Gurdwara Sahib then, and they would do annual smagams in a house. And I was doing Katha, and it was live on Sikh channel. And Jagraj Singh normally wouldn't be following or watching Sikh channel, but he happened to be watching that day because he was ill and he had to kind of stay home. He'd just been traveling back from Canada. So, and I was doing very emotional katha about by Mati Das ji, about being sawn in half, and in a lot of in great detail. And then at that time, he saw when he saw me doing katha, he sent out a message on Facebook asking Sangat if anybody knows of who this Singh is. So then he managed to find out, and then he sent me a message on Facebook, on Messenger, asking, like if we could speak. And then we kind of had this back and forth, a few messages, and I kind of said, oh, well, I'm really humbled to see that you've kind of reached out. And then he was like, oh, I'm so humbled that you actually responded. And I was like, all right, we need to stop this humble talk. And then it was actually on the same day that I did the katha that we actually spoke as well. And I just remember from the conversation of Jagraj Singh being very, very clear in his mind, in he could see a destination and what he wanted, and he was saying, we're going to take you on board, and I didn't like even know what that meant at that time, coming on board on what does that even mean. And I was very kind of like in my own way, and I said, look, I'm happy with where I am. I've got my business, and I do my prachar in my own time, but that's how it kind of all started, with Basics of Sikhi. So yeah, that was it. The first time he kind of reached out.
And you said before that you were going through a hard patch before finding Sikhi, and that really links into the topics of the podcast today, because we'll be talking about happiness and gratitude. So where did that journey of finding happiness and gratitude kind of start for you?
So when I said I was going through a difficult time, I would say, like, for me at that time, I didn't recognize that difficult time for it being me personally. It was like something that was going on in the family, and then that affected all the family. But one thing that was very clear to me, because even after that, for 10 years, I was very on a roller coaster, just couldn't quite find my feet. I was like, I would be like kind of practicing for a year, and I'd kind of then go back and forth, back and forth. And it wasn't until I got married, which was in 2008, and then kind of, when you've reached a point where you think like kind of what this world has sold to you, which is deemed to be happiness. And I kind of reached that point in my life where I had a really successful business, earning good money for being that age, and then getting married to the girl I wanted to get married to, which was like a battle for many, many, many years. being out of religion. So like when I sat back and I kind of had everything in the worldly sense, materialistically, we had a really nice house, had like a flash car, like got to marry the woman I wanted. And then after all of that, and then there was still certain things, where it was causing, there's bickering going on at home. There still wasn't that happiness. So I thought, oh my God, like I've been robbed, isn't this like they say, this is where once you've achieved all of these things, then you've kind of made it. And I thought, like, I don't feel like I've made it in any way. Like we're still so miserable. And it was at that point where I thought I wanted to start digging deeper to, I had this urge to want to know what Gurbani is saying, where it wasn't just, I wasn't satisfied with just reading it anymore. And I wanted to know what my guru was actually saying to me. And then I started that journey. There was a lot going on at home. So this is like I was 28, and then so it had been like 12 years on from getting into Sikhi originally, but then it was this shift of thinking I've got everything, still no happiness. And I just went crazy. I was literally, I bought this laptop, and so it was a big thing back then, sorry. It was a long time ago. So I bought this laptop, and you were thinking, all right, Paji, you got a laptop. It was actually a really big thing for me back then. And I was like, and I remember I just day and night, I started researching how to find translations of Gurbani. And I was very, very much just obsessively watching Janelle Singh Ji's speeches. And I was very much linked with Nanak Sar. That's the Gurdwara I was the first, introduced to when my Sikhi journey started. And always kind of grew up with Mahapurukhs. And it was that when I started to research Japji Sahib. And it felt like there's this Bhakti that would come to mind, that when I look back at that time, and in Sri Rag, Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that Reman Aisi Harsyo Preet Kar. They said that love Waheguru Ji in this way. And for me, that har in that moment is like, I'd refer it back to Gurbani, that Reman, like, hey, my mind, Aisi Harsyo Preet Kar Jaisi Machli Neer. This is just like a machi, a fish, neer, and the water. That immense pyar that machi has, it can't live. The life of that fish is that water. And in that moment back now, when then it was about 2009, when I couldn't find this happiness externally, Gurbani became that for me. And I felt like that fish that, and then Guru Nanak Dev Ji describes it in a way saying, Jo adko, the deeper you go, syo sukh kano. They're saying that the sukh the bliss starts to grow, where anything worldly, like the bliss would come to an end. This was the first time experience where the bliss was growing and I wanted more and more of it. So it's just like, Jasi Machli Neer, Guru Sahib said, Jo adkyo to sukh kano. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Yes, I've been reading Bani for so many years, but this connection of like this yearning to want to know what the Guru is actually saying to me. And that was kind of this turning point, this shift. And I remember being sat on the sofa, like where everybody else, my mom and everyone else, would be immersed watching their serials and dramas on the TV. So I remember just being glued onto the screen. And then when I wanted a break at it, we had like a painting of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and I had a glimpse and just look at that. Hence, I'm a lover of paintings. And then and I remember actually, and then when I'd go upstairs, I'd actually like put the laptop on the start and take it upstairs just to say, you've literally become my everything, that is giving me so much in this time. And doesn't matter what's going on externally, I'm finding this peace inside.
Is there a way to define happiness?
But most of the happiness that a lot of people in the world talk about is, I often always ask, and I start off my talks with this question, even when I speak to a lot of students and with sixth formers where I work, I always ask them like, what is happiness? What is happiness for you? How would you describe what happiness is? And a lot of people nowadays, they will give you the right answer. You know, it's to feel content, da, 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 da. But when we actually then look at our lives in what we're trying to do to achieve this happiness, is completely the opposite of truly reaching that space of contentment. So if we look at a lot of the happiness that the world's talking about are actually momentarily pleasures. Okay, nothing wrong with enjoying certain pleasures within this life, right? Food gives us a certain amount of pleasure, right? True. Okay.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
yeah, that's fair, isn't it, Benji? Like, well, I'm sure you've got favorite food.
Yeah, that's right.
Go on then. What is your favorite food?
Um, I do enjoy pizza. I also like paneer. Anything that's cooked by my mum is my favorite food, to be honest. What about you?
Um, I haven't. I don't think it's very difficult for me to like kind of pinpoint to say this is a favorite food. But again, something that's cooked like with a lot of pyar, with a lot of love, and very homely. And sometimes it could be like just simple masarandi dal, yellow dal, made with pyar, you know,
Yeah,
and with some hari mirch thrown into there, na? And a nice strong todka. Like, yeah, so it could be something as it's very different, like it's in the moment type thing. Yeah, I'm not huge fan of pizza, but like sometimes, yeah, when it's made at home again with that pyar and we all
I think
make it together.
home food is too good. I live out for uni, so the
Mhm,
second I go home, eating home food is just another type of happiness.
mhm. So look, you're asking me about happiness, but you know, and you spoke about gratitude. We can actually link the two here, right? I'll tell you something about when I spoke about experiencing the pleasure from food and there being nothing wrong with that. Okay. But expecting that to give us that that eternal happiness would be an illusion, right? But in itself, how can we work towards gratitude? So for example, a lot of people in this world take it for granted when they experience the enjoyment of that pleasure from a certain food. You know, it could be anything, but we're talking about food, so we'll run with that example, right? um and why do I say people take that for granted? Because if somebody is ever experiencing a time in their life where they're very low and they feel disconnected to their emotions, or they're feeling very anxious, stressed, anxiety, right? You actually lose the ability and the sense to be able to enjoy, right? And the word enjoy is no small word, because that is given to us by Akal Purkh, given to us by Waheguru, right? By God, by our Creator, to be the ability to be able to enjoy something is no small thing, right? But we often take it for granted. But if you ask someone that is experiencing a form of mental health issue, be depression, which is just one part of mental health, right? Um, they tend to lose that experience of being able to enjoy something. So what Guru Sahib does for us is reminds us, actually this is another something for you to be grateful for if you've got the ability to be able to enjoy something, right? And that's what there's an Ashtapadi. So there's a section with cities in Sukhmani Sahib, which is a composition by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, just for the listeners, right? And where they dedicate the complete that part, that Ashtapadi, to gratitude, right? And when we're experiencing gratitude, in that moment, we're actually experiencing true happiness, right? You can't separate the two. In that moment of gratitude, you are in the experience of happiness. Guru Arjan Dev Ji say to us, Jai Prasad Rang Ras Pog. So kept mentioning this word, enjoy, to be able to enjoy something. And the word for enjoy in Gurbani is Pog. Okay. And then ras is the pleasures out of something, right? So Guru Sahib is saying Jai Prasad, it's the grace of that one. Ras, if we're able to, the rang, the colors of this world, and one of the colors of this world that we're discussing, we're talking about is food. Okay, that's just another color of that one, isn't it? Right? That's the way Guru Nanak Dev Ji has made this entire world in these different colors. Rangi, rangi panti, kar kar, jinsi, maya, jin upai. Right? These are the words of our Guru. And so Guru Sahib Ji saying, Jai Prasad, it's the grace of that one. If Rang Ras, you're able to enjoy the pleasures of the different colors that have been provided by Waheguru, by the Creator. Because I've experienced in my life of going through a period of a breakdown and not having the ability to enjoy these normal things in life anymore, right? So going from that and then and receiving it back and then being able to sit there, and now I'm drinking this tea and I'm like, wow, right? And when you actually went through a period of your life when you just drank something and it just, there was nothing right inside, but then when it comes back and you can drink that and you think, oh wow, this is what Guru Nanak Dev Ji is talking about in Gurbani and Asa Diwar when they're saying that Vismad Bhog, right? They say Vismad Bhog, Vismad Bhog. They said that I'm in awe of having the ability to feel hunger. It's people that lose that ability, right? And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Vismad Bhog, I'm in awe of being able to enjoy something, right? So then these are different, these are many different ways that the Guru has given us, saying if you've gone to sleep, yeah, not physically, but if you've gone to sleep in life, where you're living your life in absolute unawareness, then they say, let me give you all of these different reasons to connect back with gratitude, which will allow you to experience being in happiness in that moment, right? The truth is we don't need anything to live in gratitude, but these are then all aids that can help us to experience that avastha, to go into that space, right? So I love using that one, Jai Prasad Ranga Spog, when I'm able to enjoy something, be it a shower, be it the way that water makes me feel, be it a cup of tea or a pizza or whatever it may be, or even a hug, right? Because these things aren't to be taken for granted. To enjoy a hug, it comes from grace. What is grace? Grace is something we haven't got the ability to tap into. Grace is the power of that one, right? I can't now decide. So for example, I can't now drink this cup of tea. I might as well take a sip. I can't drink that tea and press a button to say enjoy. I can't, can I? I can't have that shower and think, wow. But if I feel wow, then that means it's grace. It's something that I didn't have the power to do, but that one made it possible for me to experience. So I'm in awe of that one for allowing me to experience that.
How can you reach a point where you are actually feeling that grace and then to be able to maintain it as well?
There's a few ways. Look, Benji, like the disclaimer is here that Vaheguru's kirpa is, we don't know in which way it's gonna happen, right? That grace, the way it's gonna flow, and it can happen in any moment like that, and where it just doesn't go, we're not able to understand how did that happen, right? So those are the 1 in a million ones, right, that it happens for in that way. For the rest of us, we can, I'll call us the normal people, right? Not the Jagam hai because those are very rare. Huh? So let's talk about the majority. Guru Sahib is saying when you do something again and again, right? These are all new age things today that people are talking about, right? They're saying you should do all of this gratitude journaling, you should do this, you should do that. You hear about all of these things, right? No, but these things are those very things that our guru spoke about. All it is, we weren't able to grasp it and understand it because of the poeticness of Guru Sahib Ji's description of their experience and the language, right? So there was that barrier. So how do you maintain that? One of the ways is Guru Nanak Dev Ji says to us, Kar, Karana. See, look, I'm using Baniya and Panktiyan that you're familiar with, but haven't necessarily seen them in that light, right? And this is how we can then start the using Bani, right? And Guru Sahib says, Kar, doing something again and again, right? Kar, Karana. And then when it becomes your Karana, it becomes your way of life. It becomes so effortless for you, right? And science today tells us that our brain isn't, it's not like it's not that it can't be changed, it's neuroplastic, so you can wire your brain in a certain way. It's exactly what Guru Sahib is saying, right? So you've got to create then those neural paths within your brain, and by doing that again and again, karna, and then Guru Sahib Ji says, what will happen then? Likh la jaho. You will then get that inscribed deep inside of you, not just on the brain level, this is on the mind level. The mind is a subtle entity that isn't bound only to this physical body, right? The brain is seen to be like a tool that acts, that is this means of communicating through this world, right, for what is being stored in your mind, which is subtle, which travels with you even when you leave your body. And our mind is something that has come with us from our past lives too, right? Everything that we've got stored, it's like a storage. Okay, so lik la jaho, and then la jaho, then Guru Sahib Ji says we carry that in our life. So for example, how do you make that happen where it becomes constant? Is first of all, you practice it consciously. So you could take that Astpadi, for example, where Satguru Pach is talking about that Jai Prasad Sunhe Karnanad, right? So they're saying that, like, for example, you take that Pankti, use the wisdom of the Guru, Sunhe, way to Guru Sahib is saying, Sunhe, you've got the ability to be able to listen, to be able to hear with your ears, take it for granted, don't we? So that can be another thing that we use, and we remind ourselves every day. And when we remind ourselves every day of, wow, I can hear, right? Because there are people that can't, right? And I've got this ability. Oh, wow. Okay. Then imagine if I didn't have it, I couldn't be doing this with you now. I couldn't be doing this Zoom session with you now. We'd have to use other means, right? Imagine my favorite kirtan. Imagine my favorite song, and I couldn't actually hear that. Imagine if I lost that ability, right? When you practice that then, and then you go into this space of gratitude, if you do that enough, then your life will become filled with gratitude, where your internal mantra, without even saying it, will become thank you, where you're in awe then of every moment in your life. First, you do it consciously with certain things, and that's what the Bani allows us to do, if we take Bani as a guide and not just as a mantra.
That's really beautifully said. I think a lot of people would benefit off of that as well, because I think nowadays it's very difficult. Say, look at coronavirus itself and the current situation that we're in, where we're all in lockdown, can't really see our loved ones, can't do things that people would enjoy and say that they would find happiness from. And now everyone's in this state of mind where they find it very difficult because your life has just suddenly changed, and it's very difficult to find things that you were grateful for. So, in times of difficulty and challenges such as this, where people aren't maintaining that routine that they had, or seeing people that they were grateful for, or doing things that thought brought them happiness, how can they then go about finding happiness, even if it wasn't just in this coronavirus situation, but maybe in a day-to-day situation, something happens and then they find it difficult to kind of change their routine, and something that they were grateful for has now gone. Where can they then find that gratitude and that happiness?
So whilst I was talking I mentioned very vaguely that these are mere stepping stones, just to allow us to realize that actually in this very moment I can experience happiness. Okay, so it it what it means is that, okay, I might have used now this cup of tea to allow me to experience gratitude, but the truth is, even without that cup of tea, I've got the ability to feel that happiness right now inside of me, not based off anything. The one thing that, but these are all aids, and like you can see them to be like railings to get us to that place where we hold on to, right? But they're just to get us to that place where we realize actually it's all inside of me anyway. The Guru reminds us that Sab Kech Karma hai. Everything is in the house of my own self. Everything is already inside of me. And this journey is all about turning inwards. Right? Sab Kech Karma hai, bahar nahi, bahar tole, so param pulahi. Guru Sahib Ji saying, the more I try and find that happiness from external sources, the more I will feel lost. Yeah? The more I will grow deeper and deeper into doubt. Okay. Any moment of your life, whenever you experienced and felt an emotion, you always experienced and felt it inside of yourself. Correct? Okay. So this should actually be a calling for us, that everything I need is already actually sitting inside of me to experience that completeness. That's why the Guru says, "Get the anduk." There's many people that are in pain, suffering, bhuk, are hungry, they're suffering due to hunger, sadmar. But the Guru Sahib saying, take it as a calling, right? And the truth is, the more and more, it's very important. I think we could take this time as an opportunity to spend more time in and experience that solitude of spending time alone and going deeper inside, because it's only inside where everything is. Guru Sahib reminds us that everything external is actually is temporary. They say that chad korote kine mahe. This is that those that we said that we've got so much love for and they've got love for us. This is, but when we leave this body, in an instant we leave everything behind. Yeah. And the truth is, this whole thing of being in search of like loved ones, right? And like you use that word, loved ones. And the truth is, love is something, again, that we experience inside of us. So we've got the ability to find love within ourselves without anything external. And once you touch that love that is sat inside of you, right, then you don't need something else externally to experience, or you've got then no need left to think, I need love from you, or I need a loved one around me. The whole process of a spiritual journey is to find love within yourself. And once you've found that, that's when you're experiencing true satisfaction and contentment. And then when you go to meet other people, then you're truly in a space of what we refer to as love, and become selfless, because you're not now trying to rob them and take something from them. You're there now to share the love that you have found within yourself, right? And this can be very difficult to digest for a lot of people. It sounds very bizarre and alien because it's not what we've been told. We've been growing up being told that you look for your love, you look for that loved one, you know. And it's not a this if you look into the path of spirituality, it's always about finding love within yourself, you becoming love, you embodying that love. and love then becomes our nature, and then we ooze out that love. That's the reality and that's the truth. Until we're looking for that love within our partner, within our mum, it's always going to fall short. It's always going to fall short somewhat, because there's going to be the expectations of them being in a certain way, and sometimes they won't live up to that expectation. There might be times when they're feeling low and they're not able to give that love because they're disconnected from it themselves. And then we then experience disappointment, and then we have that disconnection to people. And this is all talking within the realm of what Gurbani is saying. But a lot of people find it difficult to digest these things because it's not the norm of what we're used to hearing.
You spoke briefly about expectations, and I think a lot of the time we find as humans we expect a lot from this life. We expect a lot from people around us, and you also said that that would be maybe the root cause of maybe unhappiness or being ungrateful or being in a mind space that you don't want to be in. But that also kind of links to attachment, because in one sense, you know, you've expected something from, say, I don't know, someone that you love, but then you've also become attached to them and that expectation. So how can people then free themselves from that attachment and also not expect anything from people? Because it's very easy to say don't expect something from someone, but human nature, you almost expect something from everything in life.
So as you said, as being a human, a part of being human is that naturally that element of expectation is going to be there. The issue isn't like I might be expecting you to make the bed, right? From your family members, something as simple as that, right? But if I'm gonna now put all my hopes in receiving my own satisfaction and happiness in what I'm expecting you to do, that's when I'm gonna fall, right? And then when that expectation is not met, and then allowing it to affect my being, right? Being is holding on. If my whole sense becomes dependent on what I'm expecting from you, for me to be in a certain space internally, that's the problem. So the problem isn't the actual expectation in itself, right? It's what's behind that expectation. Does that make sense? Because in life, to survive, there's got to be that element of where you're expecting someone to do a certain something, because that's how you make a household function or society function, your workplace to function, right? Correct. So there's that side to it. But and you're saying then, for one, the first step is that realization of my expectation towards that person cannot fulfill me, because they can never fulfill all my expectations. It's not possible. Yeah. So I've got to realize that my journey towards happiness is separate from the expectations that I've got on a survival level and plane of this physical world. And the $1 million question I think you're waiting for is, how do you get to that place? It's not one kind of answer to say, aha, Carlo, here you go, do this, and you're going to get to that place. And the truth is that something we discussed, that's one part of it, is finding things and reasons initially, be external, to take us to that place of being grateful, right? Without having the attachment of needing that thing to take us there. Just allowing that to get us to know I've got the ability to feel grateful. Yeah. And then you got to disconnect even then from what it was that made you feel content, made you feel grateful. Yeah. So it's a very fine path. That's why the Guru describes it as Kanyotiki Mavalhuniki, Et Marg Jana. Right? And that's why the Guru Sahib says it's a very fine path, very sharp path. And again, then the Guru says this path is Bhagatan Ki Chal Nirali. It's a very distinct way of living if you're on a truly internal spiritual journey. It's Bhagtan ki chal nirali, chalan nirali, Bhagtan keri, bikhm marg chalana. So it's a difficult path to walk on, right? So it's using these multiple tools for, and I say to people even, that alone can help you to get to that space of feeling just totally in love, just practicing gratitude through different means, and you could get there through that. There's nothing to say this is the only thing that's going to get you there, right? For some people, what will be more predominant in them is to carry out different forms of meditation, right? Whether that be through Guru Mantra, whether that be through just breath meditation, whatever it is. The thing is, it doesn't matter what it is that takes you there, and it's going to be different for different people. And often, and that's why Guru Sahib has then given us like this balance of having the balance of the seva and the simran. So the serving will help to keep you humbled, right? Help you to live within humility. And then you've got the simran, which is the meditation, which helps to take you away from being so identified with your mind, with your thoughts and your memory, and all the identities that you have formed within your mind, right? That I am this, I am a pracharak, I am this gender, I am this religion, right? Meditation gives you that opportunity to go to a space which is beyond those identities, to realize that actually man tu jyot swarup hai, that actually you're the embodiment of that light, right? Apna mool pachan, man har ji tera naal hai, that your source of creation is constantly within you. So for me, for my experience in life, is that you've got to kind of find that thing that does it for you.
Is there a way that people can go about finding that thing? Because you spoke about Simran and Nam. Obviously, the power that Nam can have on our emotions is you can't describe it. But for people that maybe haven't had that connection to Sikhi right from the get go, and they're trying to look for this happiness, this gratitude, how can they then find this method of keeping them happy?
First thing is people are going to realize what it is they're actually looking for. When somebody says that I'm looking for true happiness, or I'm yearning to be in that space, whatever somebody might be naming it, somebody might be naming it happiness, find that place of gratitude, whatever it is. The truth is, what they're looking for is God, because happiness and God can't be separated. When we're saying I'm looking for happiness, we're actually saying I'm looking for God, because it is Waheguru that is the embodiment of bliss. That's what Gurbani tells us. Agade abade anandi surupe. Waheguru is a surup, the embodiment of ananda, of bliss. That's what we're all yearning for. We're yearning to be free from the shackles of Maya, from the shackles of being in this compulsive mode of being run by our emotions like anger, by greed. And the truth is, we don't want to be living like that. We want to break from those shackles, right? So, first of all, before anything, is realizing that I'm actually looking to connect to the source of life, which is Waheguru, right? You can call it happiness, that's fine. And the first thing would be is to do an Ardaas. People talk about law of attraction, people talk about all of these different methods, and the Guru tells us about that as well. So our first step is that Ardaas, is to internally is to call out to that one and say, I'm ready to start this journey. I want you to help me, and I want you to show me this path and show me what it is maybe that is more predominant within me, to show me what my thing is, right? That's going to help me to connect to you. And that's why Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that if you go inside and you can, whatever it is you ask for, that aakh hai, manga hai, de hai. That one will provide. It's the law of creation. It's the law of nature, whatever you want to call it. That's just the way it works. But it's going to come from inside, from that language that is spoken with your heart. Pa kya, pao apar. So when you go to that space, then aaka hai, manga hai, and what you're saying is show me the way. And then within that, he say that mere har pritam ki koi baat sunave so pai so mera veer. That whoever tells me about that beloved and shows me the way and the path to that one, that is my true brother, my true relative. So allow me to meet those people in my life that are going to show me how to get closer to that space, right? And that's what Guru Arjan Dev Ji says throughout Gurbani, and they'll say Kanki Eka Dars Tuharo. I've got this one inner burning desire, and that's to kind of get closer to you, to Waheguru, right? And that is, somebody could call that happiness. It doesn't matter. They're actually saying the same thing. Yeah. And that's where when Guru Arjan Dev Ji says, Suni yaar, hamare sajjana ek karo binantiya. This says, I've got this one request. And this is, listen, my friend, to listen on my Guru. And that, what am I here trying to do? This mohan lal pyare ho firon ko jantiya. I'm trying to get closer to that mohan, to that enticing Waheguru, right? And then ho firon ko jantiya, I'm yearning, I'm searching for that one. This dasa pyare, somebody tell me of that beloved. Sir tari utare, I'm ready to give my head to find that one. Ekapuri darshan dije, so I can have a glimpse of that one, right? So the first step would be is an ardaas, is this inner plea and this internal dialogue and conversation with that one that has created us, and say, look, I show me the way. Where do I go?
I always do Ardaas, but I don't know if there's a right way to do Ardaas.
For me, Ardaas is what the word Ardaas says. Throughout Gurbani, Guru Sahib Ji will be doing an Ardaas. And in that Ardaas, Guru Nanak Dev Ji will be saying, Panavat Nanak Tare His way, that, I put this plea before you, that you are the one that saves those that get to that space of saying, Hum nahi change bura nahi koi, that I'm not saying I am better than you, and somebody is below me and somebody's bad. And this is my ardaas, right? For you to allow me to experience that. So there's an ardaas constantly throughout Gurbani. Mm-hmm. An ardaas, forget even going into the breakdown of the word and getting all technical, right? Even though the word itself tells you what an ardaas is. Yeah, it's an arz by a das. When you become a das, a servant, when you humble yourself before that power that you have no power over, yeah? And you fall to your knees from inside. And then arz means when you put this plea forward. You can do it formally, you can do it standing up, you can say all the right words. If that isn't speaking, it won't be heard, right? An ardaas is when your inside is truly asking for that thing. If it matches what is coming out of here, is actually being said from here. Otherwise, it won't become an ardaas. Because the one that you're doing ardaas before, if you look at the word ardaas, is the ara is that one is antarjami, right? Is the inner knower of everything. So that one is going to be listening to your inside voice, right? Antarjami, so ardaas. Then you got arara, right? And that one is our rakhanhara, is our protector, is to know in our heart, is to have that faith that that one is going to look after me. Yeah. So you got ahara, rara, then you got dadda. Dadda is the data, is having that full faith that you are the giver and you will provide this voice. Okay. And then you got the sassa, which is samarpat, which is complete surrender to that one. So Ardaas is you inside, like Kabir ji says, Kabir, keso kukiye. I'm putting a kook before you. A kook means is this cry before you, right? Before that one that here Kabir ji choose to refer to Waheguru ji as keso, the one with gas. So they're saying Kabir keso kukiye, na so ye asar, but I've got to do it with, I can't fall asleep and do it in unawareness. I can't be just saying something as lip service, but and my inside's not connecting to those words, right? So the way I personally do Ardaas is this plea from inside, and just speak to Waheguru, knowing that Waheguru is present, that Waheguru, that Gave ko veke hadar hadur, that you are forever present, you are listening, bekat sunat sada hai sange, you are watching me, you are listening to me. And then internally, and then you talk to Waheguru in whatever language, in whatever words, and however you want to do that. And that's an Ardaas.
I actually asked Sangat on my Sikki class page if they had questions for you, and I got quite a few, but there was one that really stood out to me, and I've got this question quite a lot, and it was about attachment and how in Sikhi being attached is not a good thing. It's not something that we should do. But then how can we differ that from being attached to happiness or Sikhi? So is being attached to happiness a bad thing?
First of all, I'm always very, so if we just look at what we're actually asking there, what we're saying is like, what wisdom does Gurbani provide us about the reality of this life and existence, right? How does it actually all work? Okay, so it's not that attachment is a bad thing. It's understanding what is attachment and what could attachment cause me. That's the reality of it, isn't it? So what we want to do is we want to have this unconditional relationship and connection filled with compassion with our fellow human beings, right? Doesn't matter who that is. When we talk about being attached to happiness, there's no such thing, and I'll tell you why. Attachment can happen only in duality, when there is two. When where there's the I, whatever I identify myself as. So it could be that I am the son, and then there's you are the mother, right? And attachment is saying that I can't survive without you. If there's anything where there's a change in our relationship, I'm bound to that relationship, to being that certain way. So if you are not here for me physically anymore, or something happens, we have an argument or anything of the sort, it means my state of mind is going to be affected. So whilst I've got you in my life, I'm elevated where my state of mind is concerned. I'm feeling good. If that is taken away from me, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling crappy. That's called attachment. Yeah? So there's no such thing as being attached to happiness, because there is no duality when you're experiencing this true sense of bliss, because it's not bound to anything externally, physically, even it's not even we're not attached to any part of our mind or any part of an emotion. When we're talking about this happiness, we're talking about being in bliss, which isn't then, but it's beyond an emotion. The happiness that Guru Sahib is talking about to get us to is more so referred to as Sahaj. Is that reaching that place of equilibrium, being completely balanced. That is not an emotion. That is something you become. And that is oneness. When you become that, there's nothing to be attached to, because there is nothing else left for you. You are that. It cannot be comprehended with the mind, though. When you have little speckles of experience of that, right? When you're in that mode, then you know it from being it. Okay. You're not attached to it because you're in it. There is nothing, you're not separate to it. You become it, right? So attachment is only in duality, in when we live in the influence of Maya, when we live in this false identity of home. That makes sense?
Yeah, that does. Thank you, Virgie, for joining me today. Just let everyone know where they can find you and what it is that you do.
So I'm one of the speakers for Basics of Sikhi, and Basics of Sikhi is a YouTube channel which is a part of the charity called Everything's 13. So Everything 13 is the registered charity, and within that it's got many projects, and one of those projects is Basics of Sikhi, which is a YouTube channel. So there's hundreds of videos by myself on that channel, as there is of Jagraj Singh, by Harman Singh, BP Gurpreet Kaur, and many other speakers as well. I've started another initiative at the moment, which is called Journey of Compassion, which is more focused and based around well-being, and which is just purely more focusing on the spiritual side. So that's another YouTube channel that is just very fresh, very new, only a couple of videos on that at the moment. So you can check that out, Journey of Compassion. And for me, that's where I would like to be growing in, is more focusing on the well-being side. And yeah, so check it out, check out the channel. And then I'm on Instagram as well, and I'm on Facebook. I'm not that active, but I'll put the odd thing on here and there. So yeah, there you go.